What if everything you were taught about achieving your goals was not just wrong, but was specifically designed to keep you from ever reaching them? What if the very act of chasing what you want is the precise mechanism that pushes it further away? What if the sweat on your brow, the anxiety in your chest, the relentless hustle you have been told to worship, is not the price of success, but the frequency of failure broadcasting itself into a field that can only respond in kind? Pause with that for a moment. Because what we are about to explore is not another productivity hack. It is not another motivational speech telling you to work harder, wake up earlier, grind longer. What we are about to dismantle is the foundational lie upon which nearly every system of achievement in the modern world has been constructed. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you feel the truth of this in your body, the way you move through reality will never be the same. This is the paradox of the blind observer, and it changes everything. Let us begin where the programming began. From the moment you became aware of the world around you, from the very first breath you took in this three-dimensional experience, you were injected with a doctrine so pervasive, so deeply embedded in every institution, every classroom, every family dinner table conversation, that you never once thought to question it. They called it ambition. They called it work ethic. They called it the path to success. But what it actually was, what it has always been, is a cage built from the inside out. A cage you maintain with your own energy. A cage whose bars are made not of steel, but of belief. The doctrine of pursuit. You were taught that if you want something, you must go after it. You must chase it. You must sacrifice sleep, sacrifice peace, sacrifice the quiet knowing of your own wholeness, and throw every ounce of your being at the thing you desire until it finally, mercifully, yields to your exhaustion. They told you that ambition is measured in sweat, that success belongs to those who hustle the hardest, that the universe rewards relentless effort and punishes those who dare to be still. And you believed it. Not because you are foolish, but because everyone around you believed it too. Because the entire architecture of the world you were born into was built on this assumption. Because from school grades to corporate ladders to social media metrics, every system you have ever encountered reinforced the same message. More effort equals more results. Push harder, try harder, want it more. But here is what no one tells you. That doctrine was never designed to help you succeed. It was designed to keep your energy locked in a frequency that the quantum field cannot respond to. It was designed to keep you running on a wheel, generating heat, generating noise, generating the electromagnetic signature of someone who does not have what they want, someone who is incomplete, someone who is fundamentally lacking. And that signature, that frequency of lack, is the one thing the conscious fabric of reality is mathematically allergic to. Let that land. You have been running your entire life, and the very act of running is what has been pushing your destination further away. Think about it with the cold clarity of physics for a moment. When you pursue something, when you chase it with desperation and need, what are you actually communicating at the deepest level of your being? You are declaring, with every fiber of your electromagnetic field, that you do not have it. You are broadcasting absence. You are screaming into the void that you are empty, that you are insufficient, that you need this external thing to complete you. And the field, which is nothing more than a mirror of your own internal state, receives that broadcast and does the only thing it can do. It reflects your lack right back to you. It gives you more of what you are signaling. More distance, more wanting, more of the experience of not having. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry dressed up as wisdom. This is the physics of how observation collapses probability. This is what happens when consciousness meets the quantum field, and the field responds not to what you want, but to what you are. So let us go deeper. Let us pull this apart layer by layer until there is nothing left but the raw mechanism underneath. Because once you understand the mechanism, you do not need motivation. You do not need discipline. You do not need another 5-year plan. You need a fundamental shift in the way you relate to reality itself. Consider what desire actually is when you strip away all the cultural mythology surrounding it. Desire is not a creative force. That is perhaps the most dangerous misunderstanding in the entire landscape of personal development. You have been told that desire is the spark that ignites manifestation, that wanting something badly enough is the first step toward having it, that you should visualize your goals, obsess over them, let them consume your waking hours and invade your dreams. But look at what desire actually does inside your system. Look at it honestly, without the romantic lens that has been placed over your eyes since childhood. When you desire something, what is the felt experience in your body? There is a reaching. There is a tension. There is a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that gap creates friction. It creates heat. It creates the unmistakable sensation of not enough. Desire is the explicit recognition of absence. It is your nervous system declaring to every particle in your local field that something is missing. And that declaration, that electromagnetic confession of scarcity, is the most destructive force you can unleash upon your own probability field. Imagine for a moment that your consciousness operates like a reactor. At the core of your being, there is an immense reservoir of creative potential, a dense, compressed field of possibility that is capable of collapsing probability waves and materializing outcomes in the physical world. For that reactor to function at full capacity, the energy inside must remain contained. It must stay compressed, coherent, focused. It needs density. It needs stillness. It needs the kind of pressure that only comes from absolute internal containment. But when you introduce obsessive desire into that system, you open a fissure. You crack the containment vessel. And your energy, your voltage, your creative potential begins to leak out in the form of anxious projection. You start bleeding electromagnetically into an imaginary future where you finally have the thing you want. You pour your present moment power into a fantasy that does not yet exist, and in doing so, you drain the very reservoir that would have made it real. This is the thermal hemorrhage of wanting. This is the friction that most people never recognize because they have been taught to celebrate it. They call it passion. They call it drive. They call it being hungry. But in the physics of the field, it is nothing more than wasted energy, pure entropy, the sound of a reactor cooling itself into impotence through its own desperate emissions. If this is landing for you, if you can feel this truth rearranging something inside your understanding, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to this channel so these transmissions keep finding you when you need them most. And here is where it gets even more precise. In classical mechanics, when two surfaces rub against each other with resistance, they generate friction, and friction manifests as heat. That heat is energy that has been lost to the system. It cannot be recovered. It cannot be redirected. It simply dissipates into the environment as waste. In the mechanics of manifestation, need is the most destructive friction force in existence. When you need something, when you are desperate for an outcome, your entire system enters a state of high-friction operation. Your thoughts race, your heart rate increases, your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. You are generating enormous amounts of residual heat, and that heat radiates outward into the field as a low-frequency signal that conscious matter interprets as static, as noise, as the unmistakable signature of an organism that is not in coherence with what it claims to want. And conscious matter, the stuff that composes opportunities, resources, connections, capital, the submission of obstacles, is allergic to that heat. When you approach the field vibrating in the frequency of need, your energetic signature is so chaotic, so hot, so saturated with the static of desperation that you burn the very probabilities you are trying to solidify. You incinerate them before they can collapse into form. This is why you have watched people who seem to do everything right still fail. They had the plan, they had the strategy, they had the work ethic. But underneath all of that doing, they were vibrating with the frequency of someone who needed it to work. And that need, that invisible electromagnetic confession, overrode every action they took. The field does not respond to your actions. The field responds to your state, and no amount of effort can compensate for a state of internal scarcity. Now breathe into this for a moment, because this is where the paradox begins to reveal its deeper architecture. Have you ever noticed that the things that came to you most effortlessly in your life were the things you were least attached to? Think back. There was probably a job you got when you had already mentally moved on from wanting it. A relationship that appeared the moment you stopped looking. Money that flowed in during the exact period when you were most at peace with what you already had. These were not coincidences. These were demonstrations of a principle so fundamental to the nature of reality that it operates whether you believe in it or not. The universe does not deliver to the hand that is grasping. It delivers to the hand that is open and relaxed. Not because the universe is playing some cruel game of keep away, but because the physics of the field require coherence. They require a match between your internal signal and the outcome you are calling forth. And coherence cannot exist in the presence of desperate need. Coherence can only exist in the presence of wholeness, in the presence of a being who is already complete, already sufficient, already vibrating at the frequency of having rather than wanting. I want to hear from you on this. What is the one thing you have been chasing the hardest that you now realize may have been pushed further away by the very intensity of your pursuit? My complete guide, Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery, walks you through the full system of 9 master frequencies, step by step, from transforming resistance into creative power to living as the field itself rather than separate from it. It is linked in the pinned comment below. Drop it in the comments. Be honest with yourself. This is where most people hit a wall, because the mind immediately protests. It says, "But if I do not want it, how will I ever get it? If I do not chase it, how will it come to me? If I stop trying, am I not just giving up?" And this is the most beautiful part of the paradox, because the answer is no. Stopping the chase is not giving up. Stopping the chase is the most powerful thing you will ever do. It is the moment you stop being the prey and start being the center of gravity around which everything orbits. Let me explain this through a lens that might crack something open inside you. Think about how a black hole works. A black hole does not chase matter. A black hole does not reach out into space and grab stars and pull them toward itself. A black hole simply exists with such immense density, such concentrated mass, such overwhelming gravitational presence, that everything in its vicinity has no choice but to fall toward it. The black hole does not try. The black hole does not want. The black hole simply is, and its being is so dense, so complete, so utterly self-contained that reality itself bends around it. Now imagine applying that same principle to your own consciousness. Imagine withdrawing all of that energy you have been pouring into the chase, all of that voltage you have been bleeding into desperate pursuit, and pulling it back into the center of your being, compressing it, containing it, allowing it to build density inside you rather than dissipating outward into the friction of wanting. What happens when you do this? What happens when you stop emitting the frequency of lack and start accumulating mass at the center of your own field? You become gravitational. You stop chasing opportunities, and opportunities start falling toward you. You stop pursuing people, and people start orbiting around you. You stop grasping at outcomes, and outcomes start collapsing into your reality with a precision that would seem miraculous if you did not understand the physics behind it. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is what happens when you remove the friction from your system and allow the natural mechanics of the field to operate without interference. You become a superconductor. In materials physics, a superconductor is an element that has been cooled to such a degree that all electrical resistance vanishes. In that state, current flows through the material without losing a single unit of energy. There is no friction. There is no heat. There is no waste. The full power of the current moves through the system with perfect efficiency. Now imagine applying that cooling to your own ambition. Not killing your ambition, not abandoning your vision, but removing the emotional friction that has been degrading your signal. Removing the heat of desperation. Removing the resistance of need. Cooling your system down to a state of such perfect internal equilibrium that your intention flows through the field without losing a single electron of power. This is what it means to operate from certainty rather than desire, and the difference between the two is everything. Desire says, I hope this happens. I need this to work. I will fight for this because without it, I am not enough. Desire is hot. It is humid. It is noisy. It generates enormous amounts of friction and waste. Certainty says, this is mine. Not with arrogance, not with aggression, but with the quiet, immovable knowing of a law of physics. Gravity does not hope objects will fall. Gravity does not need objects to fall. Gravity simply operates, and objects fall. Certainty is the same. It is gelled. It is silent. It is cool. And it moves through the field with zero resistance because there is nothing inside it that contradicts the outcome it carries. Feel the difference in your body right now. Feel the difference between wanting something and knowing something. Wanting creates tension in your chest, a forward lean, a reaching. Knowing creates stillness, depth, a settling into the core of your being that feels like coming home. That settling, that stillness, that is the frequency the field responds to. That is the signal that collapses probability waves. That is the state from which empires are built, not through the exhaustion of pursuit, but through the irresistible gravity of presence. But here is where it gets even more interesting. Because there is a parasite in your system that will fight this shift with everything it has, and that parasite is urgency. The human nervous system has been colonized by the tyranny of time. You have been programmed to believe that you are running out of it, that opportunities have expiration dates, that if you do not act now, right now, with frantic immediacy, you will miss your window and be left behind. This urgency is not a natural state. It is an implanted program, and it is the preferred fuel of scarcity. When you operate from urgency, you are telling the field that you do not control time. You are confessing that time controls you. You are admitting that you are subordinate to the clock, that you are at the mercy of external deadlines, that your power is conditional upon circumstances you cannot command. And that confession of powerlessness generates the same friction, the same heat, the same low-frequency static that desire and need generate. It degrades your signal. It fractures your coherence. It turns your superconductor back into a resistor. The being who has mastered the blind observer paradox does not operate from urgency, not because they are lazy, not because they do not care, but because they understand something that most people never grasp. The field renders reality in real time based on your internal state. There is no deadline that exists outside of your own belief in it. There is no window that closes unless you close it with your own panic.
And here's the truth most people never realize. It's not the hours you grind, not the struggle you glorify, not even the effort you obsess over. It's where your attention lives. Because attention is not passive. It's not just looking. It's selecting, shaping, and collapsing reality into form. Like a blind observer in a dark room. You don't see everything. You only bring into existence what you choose to notice. So if your attention is trapped in fear, your reality will echo fear. If it's scattered across distractions, your life will feel fragmented and out of control. But the moment you reclaim it, the moment you place your attention with intention, everything begins to reorganize. Opportunities appear. Clarity sharpens. Your path stops feeling random and starts feeling designed. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So stop asking, am I working hard enough? Start asking, where is my attention right now? And what is it creating? Because in the end, you don't become what you chase. You become what you consistently observe. And once you truly understand that, you don't just live in reality anymore. You start authoring it.